48 hours, we take you there. 12 years ago, these two young women were brutally murdered.
These girls were asleep in their beds, minding their own business.
One of them was Paula's daughter.
When Mitzi was murdered, I just died. Can you imagine that your last thought in this world being of somebody stabbing you?
The killer was caught.
Not any doubt in my mind, he'd have killed somebody else if we hadn't caught him.
And he was sentenced to death.
His name is John Wayne Nobles.
But that's not enough for Paula. She's been fighting to confront the killer ever since.
We've been imprisoned for 12 years, and it's time for us to be free.
Bill Legatuda reports.
Your family doesn't necessarily think this is a good idea.
They think I'm crazy.
Why the hell would I want to see him in person?
Now, he's about to be executed.
There are some things that I want him to take with him that only I can give him. I'm going to wear her picture right here on my chest.
And they are about to meet face to face. A remarkable confrontation. My daughter's killer. It is one of the most gut-wrenching confrontations you can imagine. The mother of a girl who was murdered, finally getting her wish, coming face to face with her daughter's killer. You're about to see and hear a remarkable confrontation, so rare, so raw. You may have to ask yourself, why would she do it? The answer is not easy. It has to do with healing and with loss and with desperate efforts to get past the pain. This is a story of memories and of persistence and courage, too. It's about taking a chance that few of us would take. Then again, this is a confrontation that none of us would ever want to go through. Surely none of us should ever have to. Here's Bill Legatuda.
She was very beautiful. She had the biggest, brownest eyes, and her heart was so good. This was the first newspaper article. This was the crucifix from her casket.
In a handmade cedar chest in her Houston, Texas home,
this was her little gawky stage.
Paula Kurland keeps her memories of her daughter Mitzi under lock and key.
I'm just extremely protective of the contents. Well, you can see how old the papers are. It's the first time I've gone through them in 10 years.
On most days, even opening the chest is just too painful.
When Mitzi was murdered, I just died.
But today, Paula has to look for one favorite photograph.
I'm going to wear her picture right here on my chest.
That she'll wear to one remarkable meeting.
The last pictures he saw of her was her laying on the floor with 28 stab wounds. That's the reason we're here.
In just a few days, Paula Kurland will finally meet the man who murdered her daughter, face to face.
I can't bring Mitzi back, but I can make her memory a lot more pleasant than it is now.
Will this do that?
That's what I'm working for.
What could he possibly say to you that would make you feel any better?
I don't think that he can say anything that would make me feel better. But I can say some things that'll make me feel better.
Things she's been waiting to say ever since that terrible night in 1986, the night of Mitzi's 21st birthday. Mitzi came home late to the house she shared in Austin, Texas, with her roommate, Kelly Farquhar.
These girls were asleep in their beds, minding their own business. Mitzi had been out celebrating her birthday.
Carla Connolly was an Austin prosecutor.
It was very, very brutal.
She says the horror began when an intruder broke in.
He jumped the fence of Mitzi and Kelly's home, went into the house through a back door.
When the girls started screaming, the intruder started stabbing. First Kelly.
He slit her throat, ear to ear, almost decapitating her.
He killed Kelly, then Mitzi.
Mitzi was huddled in the corner of a closet with her body covered in stab wounds.
Mitzi was stabbed 28 times.
She died a horrible death, a frightening death. Can you imagine that your last thought in this world, being of somebody stabbing you.
With the girls dead, the killer might have gotten away. But that night, there was someone else in the house.
Okay, you can throw the rock when we get to the water.
These days, Ron Ross lives with his wife and 2 kids, just a few miles from the murder scene.
Oh!
But back in 1986, Ron was Mitzi's new boyfriend.
She was a beautiful woman. She always had a smile on her face.
He'd been celebrating her birthday and had fallen asleep at her house.
And she came back screaming my name into the room, and it was pitch black. And I reached up to turn on the light.
Ron bolted out of bed and fought for his life.
Our fight was hand-to-hand, face-to-face the whole time. So.
Ron was stabbed 19 times before the killer turned and ran. Ron made it outside and collapsed. A neighbor called the police. The crime here was brutal and frightening. There was no motive and no suspect. The police, though, did have one significant lead. As he fought for his life, Ron Ross had managed to turn the murderer's own knife against him, cutting him in the arm. Now, whoever he was, wherever he was, the cops knew the killer would be hurt and looking for help.
He drips blood onto the carpet, out the walkway, and all the way out the backyard, onto the fence and onto the leaves.
Police followed that blood trail, canvassed the neighborhood, and found 2 witnesses who said a friend of theirs had just come by asking for bandages.
I got a call from Ronnie's father. Dale said, "Baby, they got the bastard." And I said, "You're kidding." He said, "No." And he said, his name is John Wayne Nobles.
Jonathan Wayne Nobles, a 25-year-old ex-con with a history of petty crime and mental illness. He'd been abusing drugs since he was 10 years old. Detective Dusty Heskew made the arrest.
Not any doubt in my mind he'd have killed somebody else if we hadn't caught him.
He was there when Nobles gave this chilling confession.
Was she screaming?
I believe so.
Did you start to stab her?
Yes, I did stab her.
Could you feel the knife going into her body?
I don't recall that sensation.
He just never showed any remorse. I mean, it was kind of like he smiled all the way through the whole time.
In his confession, Nobles never said why he committed the crimes. Later, he blamed the drugs.
He had a terrible, terrible past.
Mental illness.
Not any of us have had a wonderful, perfect past.
And his abusive childhood.
But we didn't kill someone, he did.
Nobles offered the same reasons at his trial a year later, but the jury didn't buy it. The trial lasted more than a month, and when it was over, it took the jury of 8 women and 4 men less than 3 hours to reach its decision. The verdict? Guilty. The sentence? Death. Then, before he was led away to death row, Jonathan Nobles did something nobody expected. He spoke to Paula Kurland.
His exact words to me were, "I'm really very sorry. And if I could give my life right now to bring hers back, I would." And I said, that just isn't enough.
More than a decade later, it still isn't enough. But now, Paula says, there is one thing that might finally bring her peace of mind.
I sat in a courtroom with him for 13 months before he went to death row, and I've been trying to see him ever since.
That's right. Amazing as it sounds, ever since the trial, Paula Kurland has wanted to go to death row.
He's sentenced to prison, but so are we.
Look her daughter's killer in the eye.
We've been imprisoned for 12 years, and it's time for us to be free.
And tell him exactly what he's done to her.
It's going to help me close a chapter and hopefully get on with my life.
But year after year, Nobles refused to meet with Paula. Until now, 12 years since the murders, less than 2 weeks before his execution, Jonathan Nobles is finally ready to talk.
I got 13.
And he will. when 48 Hours continues.
In loving memory, Mitzi Ann Nally.
On the 12th anniversary of her daughter's murder,
We should be celebrating your 33rd birthday instead of mourning the anniversary of your death.
Paula Kurland is placing a memorial notice in the newspaper,
None of us could ever express how much we still love and miss you.
just like she does every year.
But this year will be different for us. We will at long last see justice done for your death.
And this year will be different. Soon, Paula will finally meet Jonathan Wayne Nobles, the man who murdered her daughter. And 2 weeks after that, he'll be executed.
Why put yourself through this if he's going to die anyway?
Because there are some things that I want him to take with him that only I can give him.
She's been trying to do that for more than a decade. But Paula's requests to meet Nobles in prison were always denied,
It's been 12 years and it's time.
until she discovered a little-known state program with a very long name, Victim Offender Mediation Dialogue.
Our purpose.
The people who run it shot these videos of the program at work.
This is real hard for me.
Victims who want to get on with their lives,
God knows I felt anger like I've never felt in my life.
meeting the criminals who devastated their lives.
It's real important to me that I know about those the last things he said. And
Why would anyone want to do this? Well, each meeting happens only if both sides agree to it, and then only after months of preparation with a trained mediator.
David Durfler with Victim Services, and
Like psychologist David Durfler.
this is not fun and games. I mean, this is real life. It's the opportunity to see people at their very worst and at their very best.
Durfler started the program. He's the one who finally convinced Nobles to meet with Paula.
Hey, Jonathan.
Today, Jonathan Nobles, now 37, might not look or sound much like a killer.
I have to be accountable to myself saying, Jonathan, you're guilty.
Okay.
Jonathan, you did this. Jonathan, you were wrong. Jonathan, it was a monstrous act.
Like many convicted murderers, he says he's found religion in prison. And now, before he dies, he says he wants to do a little good by bringing Paula some peace.
That's one of those moral and spiritual obligations.
He's been working with David Durfler for months.
Go to the heart. Not facing that pain is far worse than anything else.
Durfler is helping Nobles figure out what to say when he has to look Paula in the eye.
I made a mistake. I can't go back and change the past.
A mistake. I mean, I make a mistake by leaving something at home. I mean, that
A
word,
mistake
that
by
word
allowing
doesn't-
myself to get so far out of control that murder became possible.
If the prisoner isn't remorseful, isn't there a chance that this process could actually do more harm to the victims?
Absolutely, but the fact is that one of the requirements for them to participate in this process is to admit guilt and take responsibility.
But when the time comes, will Nobles really take responsibility? Will he show remorse? Or will he try to destroy Paula Kurland again?
He was manipulative then, and I think he's manipulative today.
Carla Connolly, the prosecutor who put him behind bars, has her doubts about his sincerity.
Perhaps the man is being sincere, perhaps I'm just being cynical, but I question his motives.
And she's not the only one.
I don't want to get to know him in any way. I don't see why anybody would. I wouldn't even give him the satisfaction to let him know I think about him.
Your family doesn't necessarily think this is a good idea.
They think I'm crazy.
Thought she was crazy.
I told her I thought she was crazy.
She told me I was stupid and crazy.
Paula's own family has never understood why she ever wanted to meet Nobles.
He's not honest. Killers can't be honest.
Her sister Brenda.
He didn't just kill Mitzi. He killed everybody that we loved, you know.
Her son Joe.
I've never seen him in person. Why in the hell would I want to see him in person?
Can you understand that probably most people wouldn't want to sit in the same room with someone who killed their child?
Not everyone feels the need to do what I'm doing. But I think everyone should at least be open to it.
By all accounts, this man is a manipulative guy. And
Exactly.
can use words and say things and try and convince people of things that may or may not be true.
That's right.
Are you prepared for this guy?
He can say anything he wants to say. It's not going to change what I feel.
At least that's what she thought until
Nobles has been on Texas death row for the past 12 years.
Nobles says something in a local TV interview that changes everything and could jeopardize the meeting.
The organ donation, that's about love and respect. It's not about anything for Jonathan.
Nobles says he wants to become the first death row inmate in Texas history to donate his organs.
I think it's my responsibility to do what I can to today, that which I believe is God's will.
But lethal injection leaves organs unusable. Nobles would need surgery in a hospital before his execution.
We don't let death row inmates out. End of story. And
prison officials won't let it happen. But Nobles wants to challenge that in court.
If there's anything of him walking around on the face of this earth, this will never be closed for me.
Paula thinks it's just a stunt to get a stay of execution. Now she's furious.
He can sit there and tell me how remorseful he is till hell freezes over. This proves to me that he isn't remorseful. And he's not making us his victims any longer.
So here's the problem. Before Nobles and Paula can actually sit down together, the mediator, David Dörfler, must give his okay. If he thinks this meeting might just dissolve into a shouting match, he'll call the whole thing off. And right now, he's worried.
My baby is gone. And he sits there and talks about wanting to do good.
I feel an awesome responsibility at times because ultimately someone has to make the decision of whether or not it's safe enough for these people to get together.
The organ donation is not an issue. I think that it's a wonderful, beautiful thing, just not death row inmates.
Okay, but that makes it an issue. Okay?
Dörfler doesn't expect Paula to ever agree with Nobles, just to agree to disagree, so the meeting can happen.
This is non-negotiable.
He meets with Nobles again and asks him to write a letter laying out his case for organ donation. Maybe it will convince Paula.
I feel very uncomfortable asking for belief or trust from you. But please reserve any judgments as to my motivation until I can stand before you face to face and you are able to test these things for yourself.
I mean, it's absolutely unfathomable to me that he could have so much gall and he says, I'm sorry for what I've done and I just want to bring some brightness in this life. Bullshit.
Paula is angry, but Dörfler decides she's not too angry.
The past cannot be changed. What do you do now?
The meeting will go ahead as planned.
The mediation will take place back in the visitation area.
This is it, huh? I don't want to go in there and scream and rant and rave and carry on like an idiot.
May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. Translation.
But, I mean, who knows how it's really going to go.
Body of Christ.
Are we ready? Once I get started talking, I'm sure that a lot of things that I've suppressed for a lot of years will come out. It's bottled in there, and I'm ready to let the cork off.
Face to face, one-on-one, when 48 Hours continues. Its official name is Ellis Unit 1.
The place is horrible. I mean, even worse than that.
But here in Texas, it's better known as Death Row, the end of the line for more than 400 hardened, violent criminals.
It isn't going to be easy.
It's the last place in the world you'd want to visit.
I'm nervous.
Which makes what is about to happen this day,
but I'll be okay,
even more amazing.
Jonathan is going to see what he took. Thanks. He's going to see Mitzi. Just say a prayer, okay? He's going to see that she was real. All I can do is pray that God just lifts me and takes me in there and holds me while I'm there.
Paula Kurland has waited 12 years to come to death row to confront Jonathan Nobles, her daughter's killer.
I'm not going in there for him to say, I'm sorry.
Love you.
I mean, sorry won't cut it.
Paula's family didn't want to be here, so she's brought a few close friends for support. David Durfler, the mediator, is along to guide the conversation, if he has to.
I imagine it's going to be extremely emotional.
Before they begin,
You leave it in the hands of the Lord.
Yes.
And the first word is, don't be afraid.
I'm not.
Paula gets a blessing from the prison priest.
Grant them the grace that they may be reconciled with one another.
And then it's finally time to meet her daughter's killer face to face.
I'm willing to listen to what he has to say, but I don't have to believe anything he says. Pretty hard, isn't it?
It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Dying is easier than this.
This is Mitzi. She was a real person, Jonathan. She was real, and she was nothing to you. But she was my whole life. She was my baby. And you can't imagine what you've done. You just don't know how much pain you've caused. There's just no way that you could possibly know what pain you've caused, what devastation.
When you say that I cannot understand the pain that I brought, no, I can't.
No, you can't.
I wouldn't even begin to suggest that I could.
But thank you for that.
And that's why I'm here.
Do you realize you stabbed my daughter 28 times?
No, ma'am, I didn't remember the number.
It was 28 times. When you murdered Mitzi, you murdered me. My kids lost their mother. Can you give that back to me? Can you give that back to my kids?
Oh, ma'am.
I don't know what to do with you, Jonathan. I just don't know what to do with you. It's ripping me apart. It's just absolutely eating me alive. I don't know what to do with you.
It's just too much. Too much pain, too many conflicting emotions.
Excuse me, Jonathan.
God have mercy.
As the sun sets over the barbed wire outside, Paula has to take a break, catch her breath, and try to make sense of it all.
Man.
But there is so much more to say.
Yeah, honey, I'm okay.
She's okay.
I'm okay. It's just...
She's just taking a break.
I'm just taking a breather.
They return to the meeting and find there is one thing they can agree on.
I was a beast.
I agree. You scared a lot of people.
Yes, I did.
Down the hall, Paula's friends wait and worry.
Ronnie's here, and he's really working very hard at this, too.
One of those friends is Ron Ross, Mitzi's former boyfriend, the victim who survived.
This is bringing up a lot of very painful things for him.
Ron's been offered the chance to meet with Nobles, too.
I just didn't feel like I could be in the same room and conduct myself in a sane manner.
But Ron doesn't even want to look at him. Back in the meeting, Paula and Nobles talk for hours with no end in sight about everything.
I don't want you to die.
From the upcoming execution,
Just to die. I don't want that for anyone.
to Mitzi's memory,
It's not very satisfying going to a cemetery and saying, I love you, Mitzi, to a piece of bronze.
to the one critical issue that might still mean a stay of execution for Jonathan Nobles, organ donation.
You know that I started this organ donation issue a long time ago. Can I ask your permission for something?
If I can.
If I do this, can I publicly state that I'm doing this in memory of my victims?
I'm going to have to give that some thought.
Nobles tells Paula the story of his life, of a bright kid gone terribly bad. Growing up, his high school threw him out. The Navy kicked him out, and his own mother tossed him out when he was 17.
The last night I used was the night of the murders.
It was all, he says, because of drugs.
I started the 12-step program when I was in the county jail.
Then, as 3 hours turned to 4, and then to 5.
I feel I've grown about 15 feet today.
Something extraordinary begins to happen.
You okay?
No.
Me too.
Paula's anger is slowly giving way to not sympathy exactly, but understanding.
I feel compassion for you, Jonathan.
I don't know that I deserve it.
No, you don't, but you have it.
Thank you.
You have anything else you want to say?
Not this moment.
Yeah, me too.
They take another break.
Let me go tell them I'm okay. I know they're worried.
So Paula can reassure Ron it's all going okay.
I'm proud of you.
And I'm proud of you too. I know how hard this is for you. But I think it's going to be okay, Ronald.
And then it's time to go back in one last time. David Durfler, the mediator, speaks first.
If I could be so bold to presume to use this time for your closing statements to one another.
You first.
Sorry's not enough. I brutally murdered your daughter. I brutally murdered her friend.
Mm-hmm.
I brought absolute horror into your life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else to say other than I'm sorry, and sorry seems so cheap. So very cheap. I have, Paula, tried to change my way of thinking, my way of life, my way of living. And that's not enough either. Nothing will ever be enough, but I am sorry. I honestly am sorry.
It's the second time Jonathan Nobles has apologized to Paula Kurland. The first was at his trial more than a decade ago. That time she told him it wasn't enough. This time, it still isn't.
I wish I could just say it's okay, but it isn't okay.
But Paula says she does now believe Nobles is genuinely remorseful, and she is genuinely moved.
The best I can give you is my forgiveness. I can never forgive what you did, but the God that I believe in demands that I have to forgive you as a person.
I respect that. Thank you. Thank you, Paula.
For your sake.
Bye, Jonathan.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And with that, the meeting she fought for 12 years is over.
Okay.
Now, in just 2 weeks, Nobles is scheduled to die.
These people are going to take this arm, and they're going to put a needle in it, and they're going to inject me, and I'm dead.
And forgiveness or not, Paula still wants Nobles to pay with his life for killing her daughter.
I want to be the last person he sees.
Execution Day, ahead on 48 Hours.
Face to face with her daughter's killer. The program that brought Paula Kurland into a Texas prison to confront Jonathan Wayne Nobles is unique. These days, many states arrange for the victims of crime to meet with their offenders, but it's almost always for lesser offenses. Only Texas includes inmates on death row. Now, even though she offered him a measure of forgiveness, Paula still wants to witness Jonathan Nobles' execution for the death of her daughter. That part of their story a bit later on. But first, Troy Roberts reports on how such emotionally charged confrontations are looked upon in another state, and on some victims who are in no mood for forgiveness.
He grabbed her, brought her in here, and he strangled her.
This morning we picked up a suspect named Roy David Brooks.
14 years after Jimmy Leland's wife was murdered.
That son of a bitch didn't have to kill her.
Next case is number 41.
Her killer,
Roy Brooks,
is being considered for parole.
You should never get out of jail.
Okay, we're ready for...
In South Carolina, unlike in Texas, where Paula Kurland lives, There are no mediation hearings.
I've been here 10 years.
No efforts to bring the criminal and the victims' families together.
Thank you so much.
And that's exactly how Jimmy Leland likes it.
I don't believe I have to tell him how I feel. If it would make him feel any worse, I would. But I'm not going to go looking for the chance to tell him, you know, God, he's got to know. I mean, he's got to know.
Jimmy Leland runs a commercial dock in McClellanville, a small fishing village on the South Carolina coast.
Roy Brooks came here intending to rob this post office.
Jimmy's wife, Evelyn, worked at the town's post office.
He just hung out right here till she came through that door. And when she did, that's when he grabbed her.
Roy Brooks was her last customer of the day.
When I couldn't get an answer on the phone, I knew something was wrong. And then when I couldn't get an answer when I drove up here, I mean, I was shaking.
Inside the post office, Jimmy found his wife's body. She had been beaten.
That's where she was hanging.
Then strangled with a canvas strap.
And I took my pocket knife and cut the strap.
And she was dead when you found her.
There is a picture here.
It's a great picture.
The channel would have been 2.
Do you have any memories of your mom?
Vaguely.
Chandler Leland, a college freshman, was just 4 years old when his mother was murdered.
I grew up without a mother, so I guess whatever that's like, I guess I miss that.
You don't know what to compare it to, do you?
Nope. He's very bitter toward the fellow who did it. I mean, he hates him, which I hate him too. Well, yeah, I do. I hate him.
You don't have to be at this hearing.
No.
Why are you going?
It's never crossed my mind not to. That'll get me there and back.
Number 16.
The next day in Columbia,
Timothy Gossett.
Jimmy and Chandler are there.
I'm ready to be a law-abiding citizen.
The parole board has a full docket of cases to review.
Next case is number 41, Roy Brooks. We have opposition, Jimmy Leland, the victim's husband.
Roy Brooks's hearing is among 60 cases that'll be heard today before the state parole board. He'll speak to the 6-member panel first. Then the Leland family will have their turn.
Hey, Jimmy.
In South Carolina, in contrast to Texas, official policy
you make parole.
Always keeps perpetrators and victims far apart.
You do not see or hear the inmate, and the inmate does not see or hear you.
The parole hearings are conducted by closed-circuit television.
I've earned 3 degrees since I've been locked up in this.
The board doesn't allow a direct face-off.
I would like you to understand that until this happened, for 37 years, I lived a pretty exemplary life.
During Brooks' presentation, Jimmy, Chandler, and their relatives are kept in a waiting room.
You remember when he was on the witness stand, he never said he was sorry.
Where the discussion turns to questions of fairness and forgiveness.
We thank you all for coming in. If you step outside,
Thank you, sir.
Y'all come in and have a seat, please.
When the time comes to address the board,
If I could make a brief statement, please.
Go right ahead.
Jimmy Leland speaks for the family.
Just for the record, because we'll be back again, I'm sure, but I hope he's comfortable where he is, because we'd like to see him stay for a long, long time. He took a wonderful person away. Thank you.
The panel quickly reaches a decision.
Roy Brooks had rejected numbers 1, 2, and 3.
Did you have to think long and hard about it?
No, because his sentence was for life. Roy Brooks took a life.
Not violent in any respect.
Since they couldn't watch Brooks's testimony,
Like I said, I just lost control of my life.
the family wanted to see our videotape of the hearing.
Hell, he didn't apologize for anything. He never said he was sorry.
Never the whole time.
Never said he was sorry. Did anybody hear him say he was sorry? He's not remorseful, and that's got to be the first step.
Remorse.
I am sorry. I honestly am sorry.
I know you are, Jonathan.
In Texas, remorse made forgiveness easier to offer.
Can you find it in your heart to forgive Brooks?
Not at all. Not at all.
I really don't see how I can forgive him. I mean, he had to be there.
But in South Carolina,
She loved going in the creek.
in this case, forgiveness is all but impossible now.
Well, as long as life lasts, there's breath in me. He won't get out. I mean, if I got anything to say about it.
Just ahead,
Jonathan Nobles has been fasting all day.
Today, I'll be getting my life back.
Witness to an execution.
The only way that I'm not going to die is if Governor George Bush Jr. commutes my sentence.
Payback for a daughter's death.
I want to be the last person he sees. Today I'm going to go witness an execution. I'm going to go watch a man die. The closer it comes, the more in tune to one's mortality you become, you know, and it's just not a good thing. I'm going to be very sad. I am very sad.
It's been 12 years since her daughter Mitzi was brutally murdered.
Our Father, who art in heaven.
And 2 weeks since she confronted the man who killed her and told him he was forgiven.
He's probably having his last lunch about now.
Now, in just a few hours...
It's what, 5 hours now?
Jonathan Nobles will receive the ultimate punishment.
5 hours and 10 minutes.
And Paula Kurland...
Composure.
...will be there to watch.
The only way that I'm not going to die is if Governor George Bush Jr. commutes my sentence.
And even Nobles knows a last-minute pardon isn't likely.
These people are going to take this arm, and they're going to put a needle in it, and they're going to inject me, and I'm dead.
Yesterday, the court made a final decision on Nobles' request to donate his organs. Denied.
I feel sadness. I'm going to grieve for Jonathan.
It's a far cry from the way she felt just 2 weeks ago.
He's going to die.
Here's what she had to say back then.
And I feel no sympathy for him.
But since their meeting, everything has changed.
It's just terribly confusing right now.
Well, almost everything.
But it doesn't change my views on the death penalty.
Paula still wants Nobles to pay for the murder of her daughter.
I can't even think right now. It's getting closer and closer and closer.
Now, Nobles was convicted of stabbing 2 Austin women to death back
Outside the prison, Texas Rangers block off the street to keep death penalty protesters at a distance.
Jonathan Nobles has been fasting all day.
At a few minutes to 6,
will you see everything?
Yeah.
Paula and the other witnesses are led into the prison.
Will you look at his face? Will you look at the surroundings? Will you hold someone's hand? Do you have any idea what you're going to do?
Probably all of the above.
While inside, guards walk Nobles from his cell to the execution chamber.
He's been basically in control of my life for 12 years, and today I'll be getting my life back.
It's now 1 minute till 6 o'clock, the hour Paula Kurland has been waiting for with mixed emotions for all these many years. If everything goes according to schedule, at 6 o'clock, Jonathan Wayne Nobles will be given the 3 injections that, when administered together, make up the lethal injection. The first one will put him to sleep. The second will stop his breathing. The third one will stop his heart.
It was a very difficult thing to witness.
By 6:25, it's all over. Afterwards, Noble's body is taken to a church down the street for a memorial service led by a bishop who met Nobles on death row.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
When you went into the room, he was already on the gurney?
Yes.
Strapped in?
Yeah.
Lord, accept the sacrifice we offer for our brother Jonathan.
He talked to you directly.
Mm-hmm.
What did he say?
He just said, Paula, I love you, and I'm sorry.
And then, just before he died, Nobles began singing Silent Night.
He just sang until he stopped singing?
Until he stopped singing.
What was going through your mind when you watched him sing and then stop and then die?
Well, it just kind of took my breath away. It was,
Bottom line, did the punishment fit the crime?
Yes. Yes.
This was the way it had to be done.
This is the way it had to be done.
And now, for Paula, it's time to start working on the toughest part of all, getting on with her life.
I feel light. I just feel like something has just left my body.
But first,
David came up to me and he said, Jonathan has left something for you.
One last surprise from Jonathan Nobles when 48 Hours continues.
I think that she would have been very pleased with the way everything went. And I think she would have been proud of me.
For Paula Curlin, the last few weeks have been an emotional roller coaster. From grief to anger, and now, remarkably, to peace.
Jonathan isn't going to be a weight and a focal point in my life anymore.
With Nobles dead, he can no longer haunt her.
David came up to me and he said, Jonathan has left something for you.
Or can he?
I was really kind of shocked.
Just one day after his execution, Jonathan Nobles gives Paula one more shock. He's left her a gift, a medal he wore around his neck.
I think it was a good thing to leave behind.
But is this a genuine sign of remorse, or is Nobles manipulating Paula from beyond the grave?
To give it to someone is to give it with love.
The medal goes in the cedar chest with Mitzi's mementos, the photos and the memories.
A good end to a terrible tragedy.
It's what Paula says she wants to do.
And I'll be able to let it go. I'll be able to let Mitzi rest, which is going to be nice for my family.